Behind me is the unholy trinity of EVs. We have the Dodge Charger Daytona EV. It's the first ever muscle car to go electric and woke. It also has the same reliability score as a Bichon Frise with that crusty eye condition. Next up is the Tesla Cybertruck. It's the first ever stainless steel trapezoid to become public enemy #1 of the Democratic Party. And the VinFast VF8, the #1 Vietnamese electric crossover built by a hotel chain. Today, we're going to explore the internet's most hated EVs to see if they're actually whack or if we're all just being a little mean for the clicks. My name is Andrew Lambrecht, and this is EverCars. Before we start today's video, my name is Andrew Lambrecht. I'm a project engineer here at Ever, and I'm also a contributor at Inside EVs and Business Insider covering electric cars. If you're new to the brand, we are Ever, America's largest independent EV store. We have an inventory of several hundred used electric vehicles, and if you're looking at selling your current EV, visit evercars.com/sell to get a cash offer within minutes. That is evercars.com. The best way to buy and sell electric vehicles. Now let's explore our controversial EV lineup. Our first contender is the Dodge Charger Daytona EV. It's an electric car made by Dodge, a company that prides itself on inefficiency and lots of drama. A similar business model to the Department of Motor Vehicles, also known as a DMV. The Charger Daytona is the first mass production EV to launch underneath the Detroit automaker's badge. The 2026 model year starts at $61,990 and offers 670 horsepower thanks to 2 electric motors. Per the EPA, it can manage 241 miles, which isn't particularly great considering it utilizes a massive 100.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The Charger Daytona is one of the very few two-door EVs on the market, and it just so happens to be impressively large. Sitting at 206.6 inches in length, the Charger is longer and wider than a BMW X7. This thing is also quite hefty. The base RT weighs in at 5,700 pounds, which is nearly 2,000 pounds heavier than a Tesla Model 3 rear-wheel drive. It's almost like the Dodge Charger went to a buffet and never left. But now, why does everyone love to hate on this car? Well, the first thing is it's pretty expensive. But one thing reviewers don't really mention is that nobody is paying MSRP on these cars. In fact, people are getting these things for way under MSRP. In fact, I leased one for, drumroll please, $4 a month. You can check out my full story on that on Inside EVs. But yeah, $4 a month, that's how much I got my Dodge Charger Daytona for. Nobody is paying MSRP on these things. In fact, there's tons of dealers that have these listed for around $40,000, $45,000. And right now you can get used ones for like 30 grand. So yes, it seems very expensive, especially considering some highly equipped ones are like 70 grand, but not a single person is paying that much money on them. The next reason why people love to hate on this car is because it's an electric muscle car. It's sacrilege. It's diluting the good Dodge name. Well, first off, have you ever heard of the 1970s and 1980s? Second of all, this thing does have fake exhaust noises, which is a little controversial, but if you listen to it, it actually sounds kind of interesting. And the main final complaint is from owners, and it's the fact that this car is not very reliable. Well, I'll have you know, with my Dodge Charger lease, it was in service for 75% of the whole lease. In fact, it was actually in service for over 100 days straight, and then it got lemoned. Next is the Tesla Cybertruck, the hardest modern vehicle to mass manufacture because it's made out of stainless steel. And why did it have to be stainless steel? Well, Elon just thought that would be cool and then said good luck to all the engineers. Despite being revealed in 2019, it took Tesla half a decade to get the Cybertruck out on the road. The original Cybertruck was slated at $40K, but that never really happened. Currently, the least expensive version runs $72,235, which isn't particularly affordable. If you want one with air suspension and ventilated seats, you will have to spend an extra 10 grand. But this price brings some respectable capability. The 82K Cybertruck offers 325 miles of range, 600 horsepower, and 11,000 pounds of towing capacity. Believe it or not, the Cybertruck is actually the lightest 300 plus mile range electric pickup truck on the market, tipping the scales at 6,660 pounds. It offers 16 inches of ground clearance thanks to air suspension, and it can ford through 32 inches of water. Oh, and it's got steer-by-wire and rear-wheel steering, making its 233-inch long profile much more maneuverable. So how could anyone possibly dislike this rugged electric pickup truck? Well, there's two things I heard as to why people don't particularly like it. The first one is the design. Some people think it's different, and not in a good way. What? And then the second thing is Elon Musk and his various controversies. We're gonna start off chapter 1, soccer players stuck in a mine in Thailand. Next up is the VinFast VF8, which is the most normal looking car here, but looks only tell part of the story. VinFast delivered the first VF8 in America in March 2023, meaning it's now been 3 years since the American public has had the privilege of driving this fine automobile. In all seriousness, VinFast is part of Vingroup, which is the largest private conglomerate in Vietnam. Vingroup's portfolio includes VinPearl Hotels, VinMac Hospitals, VinWonders Theme Parks, VinHomes Real Estate, and VinUni, which is an internationally accredited university. And I would know, as I've been to VinUni's campus in Hanoi. That's another story for another time though. VinFast was founded in 2017 and transitioned to a full EV company in 2022. As for the car, the VF8 is a pretty normal crossover on paper. This one is the Plus variant, and it offers a 90 kilowatt-hour battery pack that's good for 235 miles on a single charge. Thanks to 2 electric motors, it produces a healthy 402 horsepower. Somehow, this thing is 5,555 pounds, which is 400 pounds heavier than a 3-row Tesla Model X that uses a larger battery pack. The best thing about this car, however, is that you get a crazy warranty. VinFast has a 10-year, yes, 10-year, 125,000 mile basic warranty, and that is truly absurd. Even crazier is the actual battery warranty, which is also 10 years, but bumps the mileage to unlimited. Let that sink in. So why would anyone dislike the VinFast VF8? What did it do that was wrong? Well, some of the big complaints with this car is that it just feels underbaked. They also say that this car was too expensive when it came out, which was around $50,000 to $55,000. Now, VinFast has solved the price, as it now starts at around $40,000, and you can lease them for $299 a month with $2,999 down, which is a pretty decent price. So the pricing, like the Dodge, is pretty much solved in real-world scenarios. But the big complaint lies that this car just feels a little underbaked. But now, like all the other cars in our lineup, we're gonna explore them to see what they're actually like and if these complaints actually hold some validity. When it comes to the actual execution of the Dodge Charger Daytona, it's actually really good. We get plenty of space in the back, and we get an optional front trunk. This one has it, so you have additional space in the front area. These back seats are also massive. I have this front seat in a position where I would normally sit in, and I have plenty of room back here. This is massive for a coupe. We also get 2 rear AC vents. These back seats are heated, and we get 2 USB-C ports. Thanks to this massive panoramic glass roof, it actually feels really spacious back here. Up front, the Charger Daytona is seriously nice. We have lots of really good materials all across the dashboard, door panel, these nice ambient lighting inserts. We also get a solid door close thud. These front seats are power adjustable, heated and ventilated. The driver's seat is memory, and we get a heated steering wheel. We also get a wireless phone charging pad, wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, 2 USB-C ports, and an 18-speaker Alpine sound system. When it comes to the software experience, it isn't too amazing in here, though I will give Dodge some credit because you can really customize the gauge cluster, which I like, and there is so much information when it comes to performance. You can see the battery temperature, motor temperature, front and rear. You can also see the motor torque, power. You can even see a graph of your power output throughout your performance driving session. It's really cool how much information there is when it comes to performance, so I will give Dodge credit for that. That is really nice. And in case you're wondering, here's what it sounds like to start up the Dodge Charger with the Fratsonic exhaust engaged. And yes, you can rev it. Considering the Tesla Cybertruck is a pickup with an exoskeleton, it's actually pretty versatile. We get a 6-foot bed in the back. There is some lower load floor area back there where you can store additional stuff, and you get two 120-volt power outlets and a NEMA 1450 240-volt outlet as well, so you can actually level 2 charge another EV from the back of your Cybertruck at up to 9.6 kilowatts, so that's pretty sweet. The Cybertruck also features a front trunk that is power operated, though it isn't really that spacious. It's definitely not as large as what you would get in a Silverado, Ford F-150 Lightning, or even the Hummer EV. But when you get into the interior, you will be pretty impressed. We get a big glass roof, just like you got in the Dodge Charger, and the materials are really impressive. We get Alcantara-esque headliner, and the door panel is pretty much all soft touch materials. There's some ambient lighting built in here, and even the lower portion of this door panel is pretty much all soft touch. You really only get this in the Rivian. That's the only other pickup truck where you get all this soft touch material, as most other options on the market have a bunch of hard touch plastics on the lower side. Back here, the seats are pretty spacious. We have lots of leg room, a totally flat floor area. So if you are sitting in the middle seat, it actually is indented a little bit. So you do sit down a little bit lower, which I like, and there is plenty of room throughout. These outboard seats are perforated and heated. We also have a center display where you can adjust the climate controls and watch YouTube, perhaps Evercars. We also have another 120-volt power outlet located underneath the center console area and two USB-C ports. Before we talk about the front seats, you may notice that this car has frameless windows. This is actually a rarity in pickup trucks. Very few pickup trucks have frameless windows, but I'm all for frameless windows, and thanks to these stainless steel doors, we get a really solid door thunk. Up here, the driver and passenger seats are both heated, ventilated, and power adjustable. We also get this octagonal steering wheel that is heated, and what's really cool about this is that it is steer by wire. So you steer it here, it tells an electric motor on the front and rear axle to turn those wheels, and a full lock is just that far. So boom, full lock to full lock, pretty sweet. This octagon steering ratio is variable, so depending on your driving speed, that adjusts the sensitivity. Under the center console, we get another 120-volt power outlet, a USB-C port. There are two wireless phone chargers located up here. We have aluminum pedals, which give this cabin a pretty cool look. And we get a 15-speaker sound system, which is tuned in-house by Tesla. And like all Tesla sound systems, it is very punchy. The software experience is backed up by an AMD Ryzen chip, which is incredibly snappy. We also have Tesla's Hardware 4, which is basically Tesla's latest camera suite for its FSD technology. We also have a really good built-in route planner. The center display screen is super responsive, and the attention to detail in here is actually amazing. So what's really cool is that if you open the door, it mirrors the exact position you open the door to in this center screen. So you can zoom in, see a 3D model of your car, and depending on the exact position of that door, it mirrors it in the screen, and even like the window. So you can roll your window down like 75% and it mirrors it in the screen. Just really cool attention to detail, because like some cars you get in don't even get the color of your car right, let alone the Cybertruck, which gets pretty much every detail one for one. On top of all this, we get Grok, a built-in dash cam, Sentry mode, and a HEPA air filter for those with allergies. Overall, the VinFast is fine. You get a power liftgate and some decent storage space around back. And up front, we do have a front trunk, but it's the weirdest shape. It looks like it was made in Tetris. But now when you get to the back seats, they're fine back here. The space is okay, nothing too crazy. We do have this like pretty large transmission hump back here, which is pretty disappointing. So you do not get a flat floor space in the back seats of the VinFast. You do, however, have a center console that opens up, and then you got a couple cup holders that you can use. We also get rear AC vents, one USB-C port, and then two USB-A ports. The one thing I do appreciate with these back seats is that the outboard seats are heated and ventilated. So ventilated second row seats, that's a rarity to find in a mid-size crossover of this caliber, so that's pretty cool. And then in terms of the materials, it's just not really that great. There's a lot of plastics on this door panel. It just doesn't really feel that premium back here. Up front, we get a respectable door close thud. And the driver and passenger seats are both heated, ventilated, and power adjustable. We get a wireless phone charging pad and two USB-A ports, so unfortunately, no USB-C ports in the VinFast VF8's front seats. Up here we get a physical volume knob, which is a nice touch. We also have this interesting drive selector, and we get a heated leather wrapped steering wheel, which feels pretty decent. We also get a power opening sunroof, and we get a 12 speaker sound system, which has a decent punch to it. The VFA also comes with a head-up display if you get a Plus model, and we get a large center screen in the center of the cabin. And the software behind it is all right. Some stuff it does well, some stuff it doesn't do well. Giving credit where credit is due, we do have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, some built-in apps, which is kind of cool. So in this car, we get Asphalt 8 for some reason, and we also get a built-in web browser. So if you want to sell your EV, you can go to evercars.com/sell to get a cash offer on your EV within minutes in your VinFast VFA infotainment. So that's pretty cool. My final two favorite things are camp mode and dog mode. So this is similar to what you would get in a Tesla and a Rivian. And with dog mode, the really funny thing about this is that you can actually customize the message. So normally it's just like, hey, we got a pet in here, don't worry. But you can customize it to write anything. In terms of batteries and charging, all Dodge Charger Daytona EVs come with a 100.5 kilowatt hour battery pack and a peak charging rate of 200 kilowatts. In my own testing, I got this car to go from 10 to 80% in 34 minutes, which I thought was pretty fine. That's a decent number, especially considering that this battery pack is so big and we're still using a 400 volt architecture. The Cybertruck steps up the voltage to 800 volts, which is really cool. I'm a big fan of 800 volt EVs, and this thing has a peak charging rate of 500 kilowatts. But before you get too excited, the charging curve is very steep on the Cybertruck. So it hits 500 kilowatts for a very small amount of time, and then it massively tapers off, delivering a 10 to 80% charge time of around 35 minutes, which is still good. We're using a 123 kilowatt hour battery pack, but that 500 kilowatt number just sounds really good on paper. But just remember, the charging curve on here really isn't that great, but 35 minutes is still a pretty good time. The VinFast VF8 has a 90 kilowatt hour battery pack, 87.7 of those kilowatt hours are usable, and this car has a peak DC charging rate of 150 kilowatts. VinFast says it can go from 10 to 70 for some reason percent in 31 minutes, which is kind of a weird figure. I don't know why they're using 10 to 70%. The norm is 10 to 80%. But anyways, that's what VinFast says. We're actually gonna charge test this car. So if you're curious to see the results, you can click up there to see our 10 to 80% charging video and see exactly how fast this thing will actually charge. Right now, I hope you got a pretty good idea of what all these cars are actually like. And on paper and inside these vehicles, they're all actually relatively decent. But now comes the next part of the test. How do these cars actually drive? What are they like behind the wheel? And right now, we're gonna do exactly that. All right, behind the wheel of the Dodge Charger Daytona EV. So first off, we have the Fratzonic exhaust. It comes in 3 sound levels. If you're in auto mode, it's on level 1. Sport mode, it gets a little bit louder. And then right now I'm in track mode, where it is the loudest. But you can always turn it off by pressing stealth mode, and then the car is completely silent. It's just a normal EV driving down the road. And then you press drive theme, you get a lot of noise. So right now, off the bat, just talking about some of its EV dynamics, we get one pedal driving in here. It's not tuned the best, but it is livable in daily driving circumstances. And we also have a brake pedal that feels really nice. Steering feel in here is also really good. It's pretty responsive, feels very natural. And this car is obviously very quick. It makes 670 horsepower, and when you floor the accelerator, you get lots of power. Now, one thing I don't particularly like about the acceleration response in this car is it's more relaxed, which is a little weird coming from a performance EV. So it's not like a Lucid or a Tesla where you floor the accelerator and you just get a maddening amount of torque instantaneously. This builds the power, which is a little different, but it's still ridiculously quick. We also get a power shot button, which unlocks the full 670 horsepower, and we should probably test it out. Yeah, this is insane. So now we're cruising along and it's getting a little boring, so let's throw on the drive theme. Let's just nail it for a bit. Sounds pretty cool. Now, the weird thing about this car is that there is no electronic gearbox. Namely, it's not like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 that has this whole virtual gearbox set up with different acceleration responses based on what gear you're in. This car doesn't have any of that. So it almost sounds like a CVT V8, which is kind of a peculiar experience, because normally you're used to a car like this, you'll accelerate and then you shift gears, but in here you just kind of like, just gets louder and louder and louder the faster you go, which is a little disorienting. I think generally this does a pretty good impression of making you think that you're in an internal combustion engine vehicle. So it does kind of shake the cabin. It sounds really loud from the outside. And when I was driving mine, people would like walk up to me and be like, oh, that sounds really cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's electric. And they would have no idea. They would be really shocked. So at least to the average person, someone might think that this is a true internal combustion engine, but in reality, it's just a bunch of speakers and air channels. I'm going to be honest, this is actually a really fun car to drive on mountain roads. This thing has good handling. The proportions are really cool when you're driving it. It feels like you're driving a really special vehicle. I like it. Driving the Tesla Cybertruck, or not really driving because we're currently on FSD and it's taking us to a local community college. So we will see how this will perform. And so far it's been pretty good. It was able to make a few unprotected turns, and yeah, FSD, especially on hardware 4, is very impressive. So in terms of the driving experience in the Cybertruck, it is very quiet in here. So this car just has a very muted cabin, and it does a pretty good job in the NVH department. Really like the quietness. You do hear some vibrations whenever you go over bumps, just because this is such a big and heavy vehicle. But I think for a pickup truck, it does a pretty decent job. The steer-by-wire is a little interesting to get used to. So if you make relatively small steering inputs at low speeds, you actually get very massive steering outputs because you have rear axle steering as well. So it is very maneuverable. I can just easily make U-turns in this thing. Just barely turning the wheel. That is a full-blown U-turn. Like nothing. Really sweet. It's really incredible how this can drive you from point to point with zero driver intervention. So it will pull out of a parking spot, drive you to your location, and then find a parking spot at the new place. No other car for sale in the United States has capabilities anywhere near like what Tesla has. And look, like right now, it's slowing down for speed bumps, which is something that FSD didn't do in the past, and now with recent updates, it can do. So yeah, if you're looking for a vehicle with really, really good driver assistance features, hardware 4, Tesla FSD is it. Another thing about the Cybertruck is that when you have the tonneau cover up, you can't see anything out of the rear view mirror, so it's basically useless. At least you do have a rear camera view on the top of the center display, so you can actually see what's going on behind you. The driving position I actually really like. We have great visibility from the front. These A-pillars are a little on the larger side, so it does block some stuff, but I think the visibility is generally pretty decent for a large pickup truck. The one-pedal driving in here is calibrated incredibly well. It just feels super responsive. There's so much precision with that accelerator pedal, and it can bring you down to a complete stop with ease. It does a great job. There's no jerkiness, lurchiness. It's just a very, very well calibrated accelerator pedal, and the brakes feel really good too. And when you press on them, you are activating the actual friction brakes. The NVH in here is pretty decent, I'd say, for a pickup truck. It's just going to naturally be a louder product than, you know, a regular crossover or sedan, just because there is so much open interior volume in here. This thing is pretty heavy as well. It's over 6,000 pounds, and we're also running on all-terrain tires, so all that isn't really going for the Cybertruck, but I think it's able to handle that noise and everything relatively well. It's pretty quiet in the cabin. When you are driving at higher speeds, you can start to hear those tires, which are on the noisier side. But overall, I really like the way the Cybertruck drives. It's surprisingly maneuverable thanks to the rear wheel steering and steer-by-wire. This thing is also plenty quick, even in dual motor configuration, and the FSD is really awesome to have. Plus, this thing has really good ground clearance and standard all-terrain tires, so Cybertruck is actually pretty good. Driving the VF8. All right, we gotta accelerate, see how quick this thing is. Actually very quick. This car has 402 horsepower. Obviously, it's a chunk weighing in at 5,500 pounds, so you don't have the weight going for it, but this car actually is relatively quick. It's not crazy quick off the line from like 0, but if I'm driving now at like 45 miles per hour and I accelerate, yeah, it's really good surge of torque. Now, the downside is the accelerator pedal just does not feel that well calibrated. So the accelerator pedal, first off, is very, very laggy. In fact, almost terrifyingly laggy. This car desperately needs better throttle control because that's honestly its Achilles heel. This car isn't a terrible driving experience, all things considered. I think it does a lot of stuff well, which we're going to discuss, but the accelerator pedal tuning in this car is just very, very, very unrefined. But then when it does give you the power, it is, you know, very quick. In terms of steering feel, it's fine. It's not very responsive or anything like that. It just feels like, frankly, a normal generic SUV steering. The handling is not particularly great. You can really, really feel this car's heft in corners. It just doesn't really manage its weight that well. You got some larger EVs out there that can manage their weight very well, that way similar to this car. This car, not so much. The VinFast doesn't really manage it. This is so funny. I just stopped to get some B-roll footage and two guys just came up to me to talk about the VinFast. This car actually gets a decent amount of attention, which is kind of funny. So now we're coming up on this very tight corner. So I want to give the car a little bit of beans and see what the handling is like. Yeah, just very heavy. Doesn't feel very confident. Coming out of the corner. Decent. Yeah, not the best for handling. But now cruising down the highway, it's actually pretty fine in here. The NVH is not bad at all. This car is pretty good when it comes to reacting to road imperfections. I mean, obviously the suspension is not incredible or anything, but it's not bad. I know with the early VinFast, they had a lot of suspension issues. It seems like a lot of that has been resolved in the newer ones. Once again, not amazing, but it's like totally livable. The one thing I do really appreciate too is there's like very little wind noise as well. So it's actually a pretty quiet highway driving experience. In all honesty, the driving experience in here is totally almost acceptable. The throttle tuning still irritates the heck out of me, but everything besides that works relatively well. It's obviously not a performance car, but for someone who's like used to gas-powered cars, maybe they have like a 2010 CR-V, they finally want to upgrade, and this car is not going to be disappointing to them at all. Obviously, me as an EV enthusiast, I get to drive a lot of really cool EVs. Yeah, I'd buy other cars over this. But if you're just getting in this car for the good lease deal and you want an EV for not a lot of money, this car, I think, is fine. And that was our comparison. To be totally honest, there's a lot I appreciate about these EVs. So I'll give you the rundown. I'll tell you everything I like and don't like about these cars. If I had to rank them, here are my choices. Third would be the VinFast. This car is still a little glitchy and doesn't feel very refined. However, used ones are easily selling for under $20,000 and you can lease a new one pretty affordably. And you also get that 10-year unlimited mileage battery warranty. Second is the Dodge Charger. This thing is a hoot to drive, it's got great power, and the driving experience has so much customizability. The Achilles heel with this car is the reliability. Some owners report no issues, and others, like myself, have had a litany of issues. When it works, it's great, and it's a damn good looking muscle car. And first is the Cybertruck. Yes, it's controversial, and you can't go incognito with this car. But the software experience in here is great, and the driving experience is really unique thanks to the rear wheel steering and steer-by-wire. The Cybertruck is somehow the most reliable car here, even though it's had its fair share of issues. What you do know is that if something does go wrong, you can take it into a Tesla service center and expect them to fix it in a pretty timely manner. The Cybertruck is the only car out of this lineup that I could trust as my daily driver. And there you have it, the internet's most controversial EVs. Are they all actually that bad in practice? Not really, but there is one thing we can be appreciative of, and that is that none of these cars are boring crossover. Wait a second.